Warning. This video addresses themes of violence, death, and gang activity. Its purpose is to provide an educational account of historical events in the mainstream music industry and on the streets. It does not aim to glorify or glamorize the gang lifestyle.
Okay. I ain't messing with it. They messing with too certified.
Yeah.
They ain't gonna mess with it, because it's too real. You gotta mess with it. If you don't mess with it, I don't know what to tell you. You gotta mess with too certified. You gotta mess real talk. I might get a dite off the shit I'm saying. I might be
well, hopefully not, man.
Hopefully not, but shit, they listen to it, I might get a dite. This shit real, like, this shit serious. Like, everything I'm saying is real. Can't make it up.
Memphis, Tennessee is the 29th largest city in the U.S., home of the blues, Elvis, Graceland, its own version of barbecue, and many other things. It's definitely a city that stands out. The largest city on America's largest river, it has seen much change in its history. Once Tennessee's largest city, its economy and cityscape has seen rises, falls, and stagnation, quite contrary to national trends, and has continued to into the present. Memphis, Tennessee began its story in 1819. Rising with the river, rails, and cotton, it would prove a valuable target in the Civil War and would be one of many southern cities taken during the war. Even post-war, rioting would consume the city, claiming many lives of freedmen and former slaves in a protest over the result of the war. Things wouldn't get much better for the city right away, with much disease occurring there from the late 1860s to the late 1870s. The city was also broke by the end of the 1870s, but towards the end of the century would make a comeback. From 1880 to 1970, the city would see double-digit percentage population growth every decade in that period. Infrastructure investment was imperative to this growth, and the city's centralized location within the continental U.S. and the Mississippi made it an ideal place for national commerce. Cotton and lumber would fuel much of the city's early growth. However, its geographic location in and of itself would make it an ideal place for future growth in other industries as well. In much of the early to mid-20th century, the city was well diversified, not being overly dependent on a single industry. From raw materials and manufacturing to mules and transportation, the city would prosper economically for many decades. It would reach over 600,000 in population by the 1970s, despite much racial and social tension within the city. From this point on, though, it would begin a long period of decline, minor gains, and stagnation that continues to this day. Memphis would not experience a typical post-1950 decline, like many cities up north in the Rust Belt would, but rather a post-1970 decline that was something of its own. Manufacturing would decline with many auto industry jobs leaving. An industry such as farming did not require nearly as much labor or animal power. With highways and air travel, the river became less important, and thus the city's greatest asset. The second half of the 20th century would see new businesses and industries take form, though, with companies such as Holiday Inn, AutoZone, and FedEx, all of which were either founded or eventually headquartered there. The city would still see a decline of about 30,000 residents in the 1980s, and Holiday Inn would eventually leave. It would rise again in the 90s. However, it has been mainly stagnant since, despite being in a high-growth state in Tennessee and having favorable weather compared to the Rust Belt. So what has happened? Why is it Memphis can't emulate the success of nearby Nashville, which is experiencing exponential growth and has similar weather? For one, Memphis is not a booming economy anymore. It's had many jobs, lost many jobs, and has gained some back. Its status as a logistics hub cannot be questioned. However, that is not necessarily enough to grow a city. Memphis has also had a bad reputation in rankings in crime for many years now, and statistically speaking has been considered one of the most dangerous cities in America. It also just isn't quite the tourist draw that Nashville is now. Beale Street and Graceland just don't have the same tourism draw as Broadway and the Country Music Hall of Fame do. And in personally visiting the two myself, there is much more tourism activity in Nashville compared to Memphis. The city has some things going for it, with a major hub for FedEx, along with a major investment on the riverfront with the new Bass Pro Shops at the Pyramid. However, the city does give off a feel of stagnation.
Every year we take the treacherous journey to document the most dangerous city in America. This year, Memphis, Tennessee holds the title as the most unsafe place in the country. It's a place where some people act like they are Grand Theft Auto characters, and perhaps no story better highlights the violence of Memphis than that of Ezekiel Kelly, the 17-year-old kid who went live on Facebook and proceeded to record himself on a shooting rampage.
Reign of Terror started at 12:33 a.m. on September 7, 2022. Police say Kelly shot and killed 62-year-old Richard Clark. 1 minute later, Kelly is accused of shooting 44-year-old Lakeisha McGlathan while her father changed a flat tire. 1 hour and 40 minutes later, at 5:50 p.m., police say Kelly was live on Facebook as he shot Rudy Berger. The district attorney's office has Kelly's own mother call police to alert them of the alarming live stream.
According to some estimates, your chance of being a victim of violent crime in Memphis is 1 in 41, which to me sounds insanely high. And if you look at the numbers, ever since the events of COVID and George Floyd, Memphis has essentially gone crazy, doubling the murder rate if you compare the era of the 2010s to the 2020s. Today, we take you through the wild streets of Memphis so you can see for yourself what it's like in America's murder capital.
Y'all, we finished the backstory about Memphis, Tennessee, the past and everything. Now let's run an intro and get to the main story while we're here. You did.
What's going on in Memphis these days, man? What's life like up there, man?
Oh, man, life, you know, it's same old stuff, killing, same old stuff. You know how they go.
What part of Memphis are you from?
I'm from the bottom of it, like Westwood part, walking home Westwood, I'm from the bottom.
Brian Lackland, known as Stupid Duke, was born on February 14, 1990. He is an infamous figure in Memphis, Tennessee, and the co-CEO of Young Mob Military. According to him, his background is marked by a violent and lengthy criminal record, primarily related to gang activity. Duke is a violent individual. Research shows he has past felony convictions for drug offenses, weapons charges, assaults, robbery, and attempted murder. Duke claims he never jumped off the porch because he was already in the streets as a child.
All right, so what was your childhood like? Like, what were you into as a kid coming up?
I was into all type of stuff. I was doing all this regular normal stuff, getting money. I'm really ahead of my time, you know what I'm saying? They make people like me every 30, 40 years. They don't make nobody like me every day. So I was kind of ahead of folks, you know, I was kind of moving a little faster than people my age.
Okay.
So I seen a little more and did a little more, so that wasn't no average life for me.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So at what age would you say you jumped off the porch then?
I ain't never been on the porch. That's why I want to thank you so much for giving me a chance to be on one. I ain't never been on the porch in my life. I can't tell you how I feel. You hear me? This is the best feeling ever. That's why I want to thank you so much. You hear me? And let me see how a porch feel. I ain't never been on there.
Okay. Yeah. So did you have much guidance when you were growing up?
Yeah, I had a lot of guidance, but you know, still gonna do what you want to do behind closed doors. But you know, my folks raised me right, but you know, still doing what I would do.
Yeah.
I just did time, you know, I just got false security, did time. People said it wasn't me, DA still got me off the street. They knew it wasn't me, no evidence against me. They still convicted me, had me doing time, 9 years. Finally gave me some play in court and God blessed me to be back out. So I'm trying to try something different this time. I don't want to do what I was doing the first time. So that's why I chose rap.
Oh shit. Yeah. 9 years for
9
something
years.
you didn't
Just getting
do,
out,
man.
yeah, 9 years. For something they know I ain't do no evidence, no none. People saying it wasn't me, so you know how they go. So now I just switched up a lot of stuff I do.
Okay.
I moved different.
In the summer of 2012, Danielle Hardwick met Corey Selman on Beale Street. After exchanging numbers, she called him on June 27th to meet at Valley Forge Apartments. Around 11 p.m., Corey arrived in a rented 2006 Nissan Sentra since his truck had been stolen. After parking and calling Mrs. Hardwick for directions, he was confronted by a man in a hoodie and several others with guns who ordered him to the ground. They stripped him down to his underwear, covered his head with his shirt, and stole his diamond earrings, a ring, an Android phone, and $800 in cash. After about 5 minutes, they told him to run. Corey gathered his belongings and fled to a nearby gas station on 3rd and Michigan, where he called the police using a phone he found. In his rush, he also picked up an iPhone from the ground. The next day, he went to the police station with the iPhone to meet with detectives. On July 11, 2012, the victim was at home asleep when he awakened to the sound of someone kicking on his back door. It sounded like a shotgun.
The victim got out of bed and walked toward the kitchen, realizing the sound was coming from the back door. The victim ran back to his room and grabbed a bat. He returned to the kitchen and saw an individual, later identified as the defendant, sliding through the victim's back door. The victim was about 2 feet away from the defendant, who was wearing blue jean shorts and a white t-shirt. As he approached, the defendant reached into his waistband for something. The victim believed he was reaching for a gun and thought he was going to be killed, so he ran to the back of the house. The man then pulled out a black handgun and fired 6 or 7 shots at the victim. Once the gunfire ceased, the victim went out the front door and ran to a neighbor's house. The victim stated that he was not at his house at the time of the incident because he was concerned for his safety following a prior robbery. To protect his belongings, including his gun, he had placed them at the home of his neighbor, Tony. After the break-in, the victim went to Tony's house, retrieved his assault rifle, and ran down the street in pursuit of the man who had broken into his home. He also called the police. However, when the police arrived, the victim did not inform them that he had chased the defendant with the assault rifle. Sergeant Kevin Brown was assigned as the case coordinator for both cases. He met with the victim in early July. Initially, the victim believed he had identified pictures of 2 men involved in the incident on the iPhone he had taken from this scene. However, Sergeant Brown determined that these men were not connected to the case. During his investigation, Sergeant Brown discovered a picture indicating that the phone belonged to Ms. Hardrick. The phone contained several pictures of Ms. Hardrick, along with a text message from someone named Duke, who was later identified as the defendant. There were also multiple pictures of the defendant on the iPhone, including one photo of Ms. Hardrick and the defendant together. Additionally, Sergeant Brown had previously met with and interviewed Ms. Hardrick at the victim's home before the shooting occurred. The victim informed the police that the defendant could have discovered his home address from a text message on the stolen phone, where he had sent his address to a friend. Sergeant Brown noted that the victim appeared very scared and nervous, clearly shaken up by the shooting incident at his house. The victim identified the defendant as the perpetrator of the robbery and shooting in a photo lineup. Additionally, the victim was able to locate Ms. Hardrick. Sergeant Brown considered the victim's identifications credible, despite some initial incorrect identifications, due to the supporting evidence. This included the iPhone traced back to Ms. Hardrick, the photographs found on the iPhone, and images of the defendant and Ms. Hardrick together. In September 2012, the defendant and Ms. Hardrick were indicted for aggravated robbery related to an incident at the Valley Forge Apartments. Additionally, the defendant faced charges of aggravated burglary, attempted first-degree murder, aggravated assault, and employing a firearm during a separate incident at the victim's home on July 11th. The indictments were consolidated for trial. The defendant was convicted of simple assault, a lesser-included offense of aggravated robbery, and found guilty of aggravated burglary, attempted first-degree murder, and firearm use during the commission of a felony. After the trial, the victim signed an affidavit in which he retracted his testimony from the trial. Specifically, the victim stated that he had misidentified the defendant as the perpetrator and that he encountered the actual perpetrator of the home invasion at Walmart. The victim reported that he confronted this individual, who admitted involvement in the incident, saying that he had entered the wrong house. The victim expressed that he was certain the defendant was not the person who fired shots at him in his home on July 11th. During the sentencing hearing, the court heard from several witnesses: David Willis, the notary for the victim's affidavit, and Mario Bradley, a close friend of the victim who assisted with the notarization. Both testified. Criminal investigator James Johnston also provided testimony, revealing that the victim claimed to have seen the actual perpetrator at Walmart after the trial. When asked for a description to obtain surveillance footage, the victim said he couldn't talk at that moment and denied being threatened. He later described the perpetrator as wearing shorts, a long-sleeved hoodie, and a cap, which seemed odd to Johnston since it was 92 degrees outside. The victim later clarified that he saw the perpetrator outside Walmart, not inside. After the trial, the victim invoked the Fifth Amendment when asked to testify about recanting his earlier statements. Ultimately, the court sentenced the defendant to 23 years in prison. As Duke mentioned, he gained notoriety in the streets while in jail. He released his first mixtape, Certified Steppa, from prison using a phone. The breakout single from the mixtape, also titled Certified Steppa, received 142,000 views on YouTube at the time of this recording, which was a significant achievement for Duke. Despite being recorded in a low-quality studio and featuring his mediocre rap style, people were drawn to his stories because he lived the experiences he rapped about.
Certified stepper, nigga. Killing everything in the way, nigga. I'm a certified stepper. Yeah, I keep a deadly weapon. Kill a homie, you'll get the...
Duke's last single release while in prison is a diss track directed at fellow Memphis rapper Moneybagg Yo. This track was inspired by subtle jabs exchanged in their lyrics. Moneybagg Yo is a member of the Young Mob, and tensions between him and Duke primarily arose from Moneybagg signing with Gotti. However, things worsened when Moneybagg collaborated with Memphis rapper Fast Cash Jizzle, leading to irreparable damage in their relationship.
So I sat down, I'm bringing the pain. Beg your beef, respect on my name. Body start dropping, now who can they blame, bitch?
So what's really going on with you and Moneybagg?
Moneybagg crossed the line, you know, it's forever, he smoked for life. You know, he did a song with a dude, killed one of the homeboys. He got his face on the CD cover, all of them got his name tattooed on those. He just did some foul stuff that you can't never come back from. So, you know, it's smoke. It used to be Young Mom, and he did a song with a dude to kill Young Mom. So, you know, it's forever. This something ain't gonna never stop. This bitch Lewis.
So was he Young Ma from the beginning?
Yeah, he was Young Ma from the beginning. He got it tatted on him. Yeah, he Young Ma. He from the neighborhood originally.
Duke was released from prison in the summer of 2021 and immediately began producing new music. His first song after his release was titled First Day Out. This track showcased Duke's excitement about being back in the city, where he expressed his lifestyle and always carried a pistol. The song was endorsed by rap superstar Future, and Duke recorded it in Future's personal studio. Although Duke had the opportunity to sign with Freeband Gang Entertainment, he chose not to because he had just gotten out and felt disconnected from that situation.
Oh, he so spooky right here. Spooky dude. Yeah.
Ready to shoot.
As he continued to advance his music career, Duke released several singles to build his catalog. However, he remained connected to the streets. A year later, on December 3, 2022, Duke dropped a single titled Killing Spree. This track was a diss aimed at Memphis rapper and Bread Gang signee Big Homie G. In the song, Duke boldly declared himself the true Big Homie, boasting about his dominance and making accusations that Big Homie G's name appeared in written statements.
Big homie, you know you a joke. You beef with me, your story be wrote. You say you won't smoke. Somebody stay me wrote.
Duke kept working on his craft and picking up features from other rappers in the street realm. With a concrete background, his main collab with the CEO of Young Mob, B.O. Lil Kenny, which his collab with Duke gave Duke his biggest grossing song yet. Bout Dem Words, 644,000 views at the time, pushing him to a wider audience since B.O. is signed to Atlanta indie label that has found rap stars of recent years such as Migos, Yachty, Skippa, much more. Duke was learning more and perfecting his style of rap. Duke's most viewed song by himself is the Biggest Homie G diss, but 4,000 views below, that is the best song he dropped, called Scrambled Eggs.
It's in a young nigga panic. Backseat game, man, you know you got advantage. Pop 4 perk, then I talked out of panic. Money over bitches, let the whole gang smash. Talk to the plug, he don't speak no Spanish. When I pulled out this money, bet his ass understand me. I know how to feel to be locked in this. I ain't messing with it. They messing with too certified.
Yeah.
Yeah, they gonna mess with it, cause it's too real. You gotta mess with it. If you don't mess with it, I don't know what to tell you. You gotta mess with too certified. You gotta mess, it's real talk. I might get a dite off the shit I'm saying. Yeah, I might be.
Well, hopefully not, man.
Hopefully not, but shit, they listen to it, I might get a dite. This shit real, like, this shit serious. Like, everything I'm saying is real. Can't make it up.
Duke's music career has come into another bump because of his unwillingness to leave the street alone, where he has found himself in another situation with the justice system. A federal grand jury returned an indictment on July 10, 2024, charging 15 Memphis, Tennessee, residents for their involvement in an organized drug trafficking scheme. According to court documents, between November 2023 and June 2024, the defendants allegedly worked together and with others to distribute fentanyl, methamphetamine, and marijuana throughout the Memphis area. During the investigation, agents recovered 2 stolen vehicles and seized 29 firearms, 5 machine gun conversion devices known as switches, over $4,000 in cash, approximately 938 grams of methamphetamine, approximately 541 grams of fentanyl, approximately 200 grams of psilocybin mushrooms, and 26.43 pounds of marijuana. On September 5, 2024, Duke was charged with federal offenses, along with co-defendant Paul Nelson, including first-degree murder, conspiracy, and possession of weapons related to a deadly shooting that occurred at Tugg's Grill in Harbortown. According to the Memphis Police Department, Lackland and Nelson attempted to rob a man, who then pulled out his gun and returned fire. 10 minutes later, the shooting victim, later identified as Robert Winston, was taken to a fire station.
With breaking news after shots are fired in a Harbortown shopping center during an attempted robbery. Good evening, I'm Shay Arthur. Memphis police tell us that shooting happened around 7:30, a time when many people were out enjoying dinner. WRG's Jordan James is there live on the scene now. And Jordan, was anyone hurt? What have you been able to find out about this?
Hey Shay, at this time we're still working to find that out, but I can tell you that investigators with Memphis police are looking into it. This scene behind me is connected to another one not far from here. I'm going to step out of the way to give you guys a better look at home what we're seeing here. Right now the focus of the investigation is Tugg's restaurant. As you can see in front of you, crime scene tape has filled this parking lot. Several neighbors have been standing out just sort of in disbelief that another shooting has unfolded here and what has been described as a quiet community. The latest update we got from MPD is that around 7:30, they responded to a report of shots fired in the Harbortown Square. Preliminary information suggests that an attempted robbery occurred. However, once they got here, they did not locate anyone injured. 10 minutes later, a man showed up to a nearby fire station shot. He was taken to Region 1 Health Hospital in critical condition. As I mentioned, MPD is working to determine if he was injured in connection.
If convicted, defendants charged with conspiracy to distribute marijuana face a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison. Those charged with distributing methamphetamine face a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison. Defendants charged with conspiracy to distribute fentanyl face a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years or 10 years in prison, depending on the amount distributed, with a maximum penalty of life in prison. Additionally, defendants charged with possession of firearms during drug trafficking crimes face a mandatory minimum of 5 years in prison and a maximum penalty of life in prison. Duke has a long and challenging battle ahead. In these back-to-back cases involving federal drug trafficking and weapons charges, the maximum penalty is life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. In my opinion, he has approached his future similarly to Dirk. The tongue holds power, and the energy you put into the universe will come back to you. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It's got him 762. I know it's been a minute, but I'm back. You know the motto, stay dangerous.